Chapter 8. Illuminati Energy Harvesting, SRA and MKUltra. Energy harvesting. There are two ways to gain power: from within, through a personal connection to source, or stolen from others. My book, Levels of Energy, defines the lowest levels of consciousness as an energy-depleted state. Here, a being is disconnected from source with little energy of their own. At level 0, you either die, unless you get outside help, or you descend to the next lower density of reality. Some begin to parasite energy off of others to evade extinction. The biggest problem in the world is clandestine energy harvesting. At a basic level, this involves attention and donation harvesting through staged conflicts, news media, drama, and outrage politics. At a much more sinister level, it involves modern slavery, human trafficking, electromagnetic zapping of energy, negative geomancy, and harvesting human blood, flesh, and spinal fluid for pharmaceuticals, cosmetics, and direct consumption. A public example of this can be seen in this news story YouTube video entitled, "Young Blood Using a Teen's Blood to Reverse Aging." The publisher is CBS, New York. The reason this stuff remains elusive is that it takes place in the twilight zone, the borderlands of the two densities of reality. There are beings from another density, dimension, or consciousness level trying to leech off of ours. The good news, for this same reason, much of what is said here will never affect you personally, because regular folk don't reside at that low of a consciousness level. The average Joe and Karen live with enough integrity to get their energy from within. By the way, fear and anger are the most commonly harvested energies, so don't allow yourself to get triggered as you hear this. People who vampirize energy from others can, for some time, appear high energy. They can fake it and achieve fame and fortune, perfect youth, fantastic charm and charisma, all due to stolen energy. If this is hard for you to believe, consider that this theme is very common across mythology, folk tales, legends, religion, and a wide variety of fiction. With stolen energy, one can attain wild supernatural experiences, but at a price. On a smaller scale, it's like with drugs, where you can take DMT and have a peek into certain parts of the astral realm and other densities, kind of like cheating. You didn't do the inner work and didn't reach the maturity to access those realms. You are forcing the access. The experience is temporary and depletes energy because you haven't built the electromagnetic field to responsibly handle the experience. I acknowledge there are some people who use psychedelics responsibly, but the higher ideal is to access the power realms purely from inner power. This requires energy to shift densities of reality. If you want a very quick shift, it requires enormous energy. Some people try to skip the inner work that legitimately opens the gates to higher worlds, and they try to get access through vampiric behavior. There's a picture in the book of various densities of liquids in a clear glass cylinder. From top to bottom, the layers are lamp oil, below that rubbing alcohol, below that vegetable oil, below that water, next down dish soap, then milk, then 100% maple syrup, then corn syrup, and honey at the bottom. At the top is floating a ping pong ball. At the bottom, a metal bolt. Dispersed throughout, in the vegetable oil layer is a soda cap. In the dish soap layer is a cherry tomato. And in the corn syrup layer is a popcorn kernel. Different layers of densities. SRA, Satanic Ritual Abuse. The terms SRA, Satanic Ritual Abuse, MKUltra, Monarch Mind Control Programming, Child Sex Abuse, Human Slavery, human trafficking, entity possession, demonic possession, torture, and cannibalism are all linked, and they are all really about energy harvesting. In the U.S. alone, approximately 2,300 children are reported missing every day. It is estimated that of these 2,300 daily reports, 500 are abducted by strangers to go missing permanently. So that's 182,500 children permanently disappearing a year in just one country. Isn't that figure enough to raise eyebrows? Or perhaps, at the very least, to realize that something strange is going on. In the last 30 years in the United States alone, there have been 12,000 fully documented cases of SRA involving the testimony of victims, police officers, psychiatrists, social workers, teachers, and parents. And yet, in mainstream news, the whole thing is derided as a baseless conspiracy theory and moral panic by increasingly creepy fact-checkers. Telling victims that their reports are baseless and never happened is itself abusive. In the last 30 years, I have been approached by only a few victims of SRA and MK, but enough to arrive at a basic understanding. 3 people contacted me specifically for healing from abuse. With another longtime student, memories of organized abuse arose as a result of our work. There are hundreds of books on the subject written by victims, psychiatrists, trauma healers, religious preachers, and occultists. I've read about 30 books on this particular subject between 1992 and 2018, but I still do not understand it fully. SRA is done in real rituals or mock rituals in which humans are sacrificed in a ceremonial setting. Human sacrifice is entirely common throughout all cultures. It is only in the last 100 years that we started pretending it doesn't happen. Not all rituals are to Satan. They could also be to Mithras, Baal, or a long list of other entities. A more accurate label is therefore simply ritual abuse. In ancient times, the rituals were done in mystery schools. These were philosophical and political clubs outside of the mainstream. Some of them were benevolent, others weren't. At the dark end of the spectrum, a ritual can involve rape, mutilation, and murder. Softer versions of the ritual involve, quote-unquote, only the abuse, torture, and sacrifice of animals. An even softer version are mock rituals, where they pretend to kill but use fake blood. Some drugged victims are made to believe that the mock rituals are real. SRA follows multiple purposes: to summon entities from other realms, which requires enormous amounts of energy. Sometimes the entity summoning is so strong that they are visibly seen as floating orbs. Another purpose is to open interdimensional portals, or stargates, to gain access to cosmic mysteries. Sometimes the event is filmed and used to later blackmail people involved in the abuse. The events are sometimes used to scare people into compliance, to split their personalities, to allow for entity possession, or transfer entities to another person through sex rituals. Some rituals are for harvesting blood or spinal fluid for consumption. The Aborigines of Australia are considered among the oldest unbroken lineages in the world. Thus, they have a lot to teach humankind about the true nature of reality, both positive and negative. The aforementioned book relating to the work done in the 1920s entitled Aboriginal Men of High Degree by the anthropologist A.P. Elkin is very interesting in this regard. There, one can see the teachings and practices of SRA reflected in the very ancient knowledge of these indigenous people. It is used for positive purposes, such as healing, deprogramming, and self-empowerment. The same tools can be used maliciously. For example, initiated sorcerers were able to kill a person through thought alone. Crystals were wrapped around bones to be used as energy weapons. entities were summoned to enter individuals and give them superhuman strength. Cannibalism was used to gain illegal access to heaven. For some people, these things have been business as usual for a long time. Mind control, MKUltra or Monarch. Mind control is more science and tech-based than SRA. A person is subject to drugging, torture, and hypnosis. The purpose of the trauma induction is to create multiple personalities that cannot remember each other. Each subpersonality can then be given a set of specific tasks, such as an assassination, sexual seduction, spying, and other things that may be useful to the intelligence community, quote unquote. Sometimes medical operations are conducted to ease memories or implant false memories. While SRA and MK are not exactly the same thing, the two, quote unquote, sciences help each other and are conducted by the same people. The multiple personalities and subpersonalities created in MK are actually entities, demons, jinn, spirits, astral beings, that come to possess a person, just like in SRA. And I realize other researchers may disagree with me on this point. In the past 100 years, they have convinced the whole world that such things don't exist, so that they can continue their energy harvest without opposition. There's some debate around the extent of SRA and MK. Some mainstream sources acknowledge that both are real, but they disagree that they are widespread and organized. Mainstream media claims that the MKUltra program, run by the CIA, was discontinued in the 1970s, and that ritual abuse is only conducted by a few mentally ill people. When they can no longer deny the reality of the horrific abuse, they typically try to contain it by assigning it to a certain time in the past or a certain regime that is now gone. An excellent example is an article from NPR.org entitled "The CIA's Secret Quest for Mind-Controlled Torture, LSD, and a Prisoner-in-Chief." The article claims that thankfully these utterly horrifying human experiments done by your government were discontinued in the late 1960s. Other sources say it stopped in the late 1970s. And of course, as all these journalists assure us, CIA torture was discontinued when it was exposed in the 1990s. The truth is this, and everyone knows it. A group of people willing to do some very, very bad things at one point in time are likely to do other very bad things at another point in time. They are unlikely to stop doing them if there are no serious consequences to their actions. So, when some online shill tells you that's debunked, they stopped doing that in the 70s, use your discernment. The success of MK varies. It is difficult to permanently bring a divine being under one's control. The programming wears off and the memories resurface. Then the person under MK influence has to go back to rehab, quote unquote, and get reprogrammed. This is why some celebrities who are under MK influence keep going to rehab clinics. The soul is never touched by any of this. Under torture, the essence of a human returns to the soul plane. This leaves the body temporarily devoid of a soul, containing only etheric and astral layers. During this time, entities can enter. The point? Entities wish nothing more than to get back to the physical realm, because our earth is their heaven. My position in the past was this. If SRA and mind control were real, they require research. And if they're not real, they also require research. Either way, it's a worthy topic. If it is real, then there is horrific cultic abuse happening around the world that needs to come to light to be stopped. If it is not real, then there is a mass delusion afoot and it needs to be brought to light and be healed. Today, I have matured enough to know that these issues are not only 100% real, but are at the core of most psychiatric problems we have today. I realized their denial is a well-funded effort, and the deniers are very creepy people if you look more closely. Another example of trying to contain a topic and assign a long-gone time to it appeared in the Daily Mail, March 6, 2016. The headline says, "British royalty dined on human flesh." But don't worry, it was 300 years ago. In reality, some so-called royalty practice cannibalism for energy harvesting to this very day, so reported by countless SRA victims. This practice goes back thousands of years because it was believed that eating humans put you above them in the food chain and that you could steal a person's soul by eating them. This teaching is not true. You can't steal a person's soul. You can only steal their astral and etheric layers, but these are not the soul. The elites. The power elite, parentheses LOL, routinely use these extreme methods, and this is how they cling to undeserved, unelected, and unappointed positions of power. They don't have any real power, nor are they elite. They run on borrowed time and energy. Their temporary power comes from siphoning off of others. The legitimate elite are the gentle and humble people who leave others in peace and replenish their energy directly from source, where it is free and perpetually abundant. These gentle people will inherit the earth. Luckily, I've had almost no personal involvement with these underworld subcurrents, but I know several people who have. Some of them are elites with whom I've had coaching. There are a lot of good people among the elites. That's something all these conspiracy books somehow fail to mention. By the time I wrote Levels of Energy in 2010, I had already gone through 2 difficult coachings with SRA MK victims. In both cases, I insisted that I was not the right person to do the job, but they insisted. One of the cases was 15 months of coaching, and it was so jarring I pondered quitting my job. It was the only time I had considered quitting. The other case went for about 8 months and had so-so results. Today, I have matured enough to no longer accept SRA cases under any circumstances. The issue requires specialized help that goes beyond my field of expertise. For example, some MK victims have suicide triggers. These are hypnotic commands to commit fatal self-harm if healing is attempted. If this sounds like science fiction to you, you just haven't been around much. The suicide commands are not often effective, but they can still cause a lot of heart-wrenching drama. Even so, some really good material in my work resulted from the toughest cases. Working these cases also softened my heart, so a lot of good came from it. Most people are cognitively blocked on these topics, as if under a spell. They either dismiss it or get tired when hearing or reading about it. Knowing requires a shift in one's entire model of the world, and also opens the door to other topics beyond your wildest imagination, both good and bad. Recently, someone on my Telegram channel mentioned Adrenochrome. Someone then asked, "What is Adrenochrome?" I was bewildered. How can it be 2022 and people still don't know? Adrenochrome can't be understood if energy harvesting isn't first understood. Adrenochrome is blood power that's harvested off of terrified children. If you look it up on the internet, you'll find that it's been debunked as a baseless conspiracy theory that was created in 2016. But I first heard the word adrenochrome in 1998 from the movie Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, based on a book written by Hunter Thompson in the 1960s. In the movie, drug fiend Johnny Depp inquires about it. If this idea only arose in 2016, as the fact-checkers say, how could I have been aware of it in 1998? Had I paid closer attention, I would have noticed it much earlier, in the 1971 movie called A Clockwork Orange, where a drug called Adrenochrome is taken by the protagonists in a milk bar, quote-unquote. They then go on a spree of rape and violence. Then I'd also have paid more attention to other Kubrick movies and recognized them as metaphors of SRA and MKUltra, not just his last movie, Eyes Wide Shut. I would have noticed that his movie The Shining is about split personality MK occultism. Of course, it's no coincidence that Hunter Thompson shot himself in the head on his quote-unquote owl farm just a few days after giving an interview where he went into too much detail on Adrenochrome. Nor is it a coincidence that Google's graphics processor is called Adreno, and their browser is called Chrome. Once you understand the basics of SRA and MK, you will see many things, especially Hollywood productions, with brand new eyes. The collective information block on these topics can only be released by coming to terms with the fact of people operating in the shadows, right under their noses, in ways they would never allow if they knew about it. If we wish to ascend, we first need to accept that there are energy-depleted people who aim to suck you dry. Their victims often become energy-deprived themselves, which turns them into perpetrators later in life. Some of the evil people you see out there were horribly abused earlier in life. Thus, the victim-perpetrator cycle continues from generation to generation. Putting a stop to it is fairly easy when we stop pretending that it doesn't exist. I have sat with some very well-known people who speak of these topics abundantly in private, but would never go public with them. All of this closely ties into my teachings on reality creation. How? Reality creation teaches that the mind can be programmed. That's bad news and good news. The bad news is that experts of mind control can program you. The good news is that you can program, deprogram, and reprogram yourself. The topic of SRA and mind control are the shadowy opposite to reality creation. One is ultimate victimhood. The other is creatorhood. But neither your soul nor your heart can be programmed in any way. That's why you best use your heart when you program your mind. Programming the mind without heart, as in MK, requires constant repetition and violence. Fortunately, most people actually know what's going on to some degree. There is a specific ancient cult practicing SRA and MK. Almost every human being alive today has heard of the various names of the cult: the Cabal, Illuminati, Deep State, Shadow Government, the Invisibles, Luciferians, and secret societies. Most people know because they are secret, not secret. What does that mean? Secret, not secret means they reveal enough to keep people in awe, fearful, and powerless. They want this stuff revealed. They publish most of the books against themselves to hype up their reputation. But they never reveal it in the context of how to heal it and counteract it. Revelations are mixed with lies, and only the intuitive among you can discern. The cult has been around for a long time. They've been exposed several times throughout history. Then they go into hiding for some time, only to slowly creep back up to the surface and places of power. They don't exist as a specific race, culture, or religion, but more as entities from a lower density who temporarily occupy different bodies on Earth. This process is explained in my book, Levels of Heaven and Hell. Most conspiracy literature deems these people the enemy, but they are really just a part of life's intended purpose. The purpose of Earth Realm is to learn to choose, to make decisions. It's a training ground. The choice has always been love and fear. This evil aspect of reality is allowed to be there and ultimately serves the overall plan. The Illuminati are not the Jews, the Jesuits, the Freemasons, or any other specific group. They use all cultures and groups for their own purposes. The most accurate label for them, in my view, is entity-possessed people. Their aim is total control, but that goal is always doomed because you cannot achieve lasting power without being aligned with Source. Aiming for world power always ends in tragedy. Even so, they attempt to recruit as many influential people as they can. They get these public figures to sign non-disclosure agreements, or they have blackmail material filmed on them. In exchange for being a cult member, they get success. They recruit among movie actors, the music industry, CEOs, politics, religious authorities, and in the self-improvement movement. I've been approached a couple of times. If you had seen my social media accounts suddenly explode to millions of followers without organic and gradual growth, you'd know I had joined. But success is not success if they can't create it on their own. Many famous artists and actors have tried to succeed without allegiance to their record company or agent or film studio or other cult assets, but only few succeed for real. Their ultimate goal is annihilation in the lake of fire. These entities are so fed up with their existence, they literally wish to be destroyed. One of their teachings is that if they descend to the lowest levels of consciousness, they will stop to exist and can finally get relief. This, in my humble view, doesn't work. All beings must and will eventually return to the source from which they came, and that is the ultimate relief. There are positive counterparts to the Illuminati. There are positive secret societies, positive fractions of the Illuminati, and even positive astral entities. The cosmos is a crazy place. There are entities that are on their way back upwards, having recognized the error of their ways. The ancient cults are more threatened by healing, light, love, and awareness than by conspiracy theories. The popular culture is abundant on conspiracy theories, but genuine methods of self-improvement are in short supply. Also, their main goal is not riches and money at all. That's a popular misconception. Their main goals are energy harvesting and narrative control. Narrative control forms mass belief. Mass belief blocks perception. Some mainstream institutions claim that tales of SRA and MK are false memory, but it's not so. Many lawsuits have been dismissed based on the idea of false memory. For example, a child abuser might drug the child and dress up in the costume of a giant bear. Later, when recounting the experience, the child says in court that she was hurt by a giant bear. Then the, quote, false memory expert comes in and gets the case dismissed as an obviously false memory. Hundreds of thousands of alien abductions have also been carried out by the cult. They drug and abduct people for sexual molestation while dressed up as aliens. Or why do you think so many alien encounters, quote-unquote, have involved anal probes? There's a 1999 book called MILABS, Military Mind Control and Alien Abduction, which documents these unpleasant facts in meticulous detail. As you might have guessed, this book is very unpopular in the UFO scene. Two main blocks to an understanding of the underworld, as defined in my book Levels of Heaven and Hell, are so-called academics who keep declaring that SRA and MKUltra doesn't exist, and New Agers who keep saying to stay positive and not focus on this topic. But denial is not positive. The positive approach is to confront the truth first, then pivot to healing. Moreover, an honest person can easily spot the difference between people who are making up stories for sensationalist gain versus real victims of abuse. Also, the reality of MK and SRA doesn't mean that the whole government is in on it, or that the world is a bad place. There are different branches of government. There is compartmentalization. 99% of your government works legally. The cult uses the legal framework to make it appear as if all is well. They also use idealistic and benevolent people as fronts. Crooks always do this. The broad majority of people are benevolent. The cult is no more than 0.01% of the population, perhaps even less. If most people are benevolent, then why do these horrible things happen? Because of ignorance of the nature of reality. Elite pedophile rings. Now and then, a window to their worn-out world opens for the public to see. In the 1990s, the Dutroux affair became known. A large part of the Belgian government and police force had to resign when it became public knowledge that they were involved in an SRA-based pedophile ring. In the 1980s, the Franklin cover-up became known to the whole world. It involved SRA, mind control, pedophilia, and the Bush family. Then, mass child rapist and corpse rapist Jimmy Savile and his gang of BBC journalists and royals became known to the whole world. In 2014, Pizzagate became known thanks to Julian Assange. Suddenly, cult members such as Harvey Weinstein, Jeffrey Epstein, Keith Raniere, and many others were arrested, and hundreds of celebrities and CEOs stepped down due to sexual misconduct. Not one single mainstream journalist or politician asked why all of these sexual misconduct cases were happening at the same time. Revelations were hijacked by the Me Too movement, which focused people's attention away from SRA and MKUltra to mere sexual misconduct. Then COVID was created to strong-arm an awakening populace into a totally different reality timeline. Unfortunately, their counterattack succeeded, and the world returned to foggy oblivion. The only essential conspiracy happening is the secret harvesting of human energy. All other conspiracy theories are secondary or distraction. Here is an example of a recent brief window opening in Utah politics. It's a video entitled, "Arrest Made in Utah County, Ritualistic Sex Abuse Investigation," and the channel is Fox 13 News, Utah. The video is still up as of this recording. As consciousness awakens, one of the things people will have to get used to is that their most trusted leaders are involved in this kind of stuff. Consider these two news items in this context. Two videos published on my website, realitycreation.org. The first is an interview with Melinda Gates about her divorce from Bill Gates because of his involvement with serial child rapist Jeffrey Epstein.
You know, it was also widely reported that Bill had a friendship or business or some kind of contact with Jeffrey Epstein, and that you were not, that was very upsetting to you. Did that play a role in the divorce at all in this process?
Yeah, as I said, it's not one thing, it was many things. But I did not like that he'd had meetings with Jeffrey Epstein, no.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And you made that clear to him?
I made that clear to him. I also met Jeffrey Epstein exactly one time.
Did you?
Yes, because I wanted to see who this man was. And I regretted it from the second I stepped in the door. He was abhorrent. He was evil personified. I had nightmares about it afterwards. So, you know, my heart breaks for these young women because that's how I felt. And here I'm an older woman. My God, I feel terrible for those young women. It was awful.
You felt that the moment you walked in? I didn't realize
was awful.
That. Yeah. And you shared that with Bill, and he still continued to spend time with him?
Any of the questions remaining about what Bill's relationship there was, those are for Bill to answer.
Okay.
But I made it very clear how I felt about him.
Mm-hmm. I think
the second video, as published on my website, is a news report about 6,000 instances of child pornography being found at the estate of Bill Gates. However, it is blamed on Bill Gates' personal engineer.
And tonight he's charged with having and trading a massive amount of child pornography. KIRO 7's Gary Horker is live near the Gates compound in Medina. And Gary, this man worked as an engineer for the family.
That's what SPD intelligence found out, Steve. They found out that the man actually worked for the Bill and Melinda Gates mansion on the grounds of their sprawling 66,000 square foot estate, and that's where they found him and questioned him last March. The estate is behind us, right on the lakefront here, but this is a few blocks away, and it's as close as their security will allow us to get. But according to King County prosecutors, 51-year-old Rick Allen Jones was questioned by detectives about images of child porn and even child rape that were sent from Jones's home computer. Now, none of this alleged crime actually happened at the Gates mansion, but it was here that Rick Allen Jones admitted to detectives he collected child porn for about 10 years, sending images through his Gmail account. Now, while Jones was talking to detectives at the Gates estate, 3 more SPD detectives had a search warrant to search Jones's Ballard apartment. There, they say they found more than 6,000 images of graphic child porn and rape, 133 of which were children identified by police. We tried Jones's apartment for comment. We got no response. We also reached out to Bill and Melinda Gates' foundation, and we did not hear back. So, in fact, we do not know if he's been fired by the Gates' family. Another mystery into this is why Jones was never jailed or charged by these allegations up until now. The investigation started here at the Gates Foundation, the Gates Mansion, in March, and the criminal complaint, which I have right here, says he has to show up in court and face a judge in the coming days. So we're going to keep track of this. We're digging into the charges. We'll keep you posted on the latest. Live from the lakefront in Medina tonight, I'm Gary Horker, KIRO 7 Eyewitness News.
These are windows that are opening a tiny bit, allowing people to peek into the real world of our quote-unquote elites. And as you've probably gathered, Melissa Gates was not unaware of what's going on. She was involved. And of course, the engineer in the Gates home is a scapegoat. The files were found in Gates' private home because Gates is a member of the cult. Healing from SRA and MKUltra. First, a disclaimer. I am a success coach. Treating SRA is outside of my area of expertise. If you are suffering from abuse trauma, please seek specialized professional help. Many of the books that I've read on the subject were sensationalist, but there are some written by psychiatrists and healers who wish to help victims integrate their experience. If you are a victim of this kind of abuse, I recommend you use your power of research to find someone who can help you. Please don't ask me for specific recommendations. I don't want to give any. I can tell you this much, though. SRA cults want you in fear. If you're in therapy due to SRA, always take time to balance out negative imagery with positive imagery, negative memory with good memory. I have a video entitled The Good Memory Exercise. It's on my YouTube channel under my name, Frederick Dodson. This is a non-triggering process. I don't believe in continually reliving a traumatic past once it's known and you've recalled it. I believe in getting on with what you prefer to experience today. Second, SRA cults want you disconnected from normal life and from opportunity to recharge. Any grounding activity is helpful. Grounding means connecting to your environment, to feel the earth under your feet, to feel the breeze, the sun, the water. If you have the chance to take care of a living being, perhaps a cat or a dog, that can help your grounding. Third, SRA cults require your isolation. Therefore, keep in touch with friends and family, or people you can trust. Sometimes friends and family are part of the cult, in which case you need to find other people you can trust. Fourth, SRA cults require a disconnection from your source and that you follow them instead. Putting attention on source, creator, God during recovery is immensely helpful. Fifth, SRA cults require you to give up self-responsibility and personal will, to empty yourself so they can fill the vessel according to their intentions. Develop a responsible, authentic personality and establish boundaries. Sixth, SRA cults try to gaslight you into thinking you are crazy, delusional, or have false memory. Trust your body. It stores memories of hurt and tells you whether you've been hurt. Trust your intuition. Trust your common sense. Have a close look at the person telling you that you are delusional. What do they look like? What else are they saying? Who do they associate with? If there's a journalist debunking claims of SRA or shaming victims, see if you can find a photo of that person or hear their voice. Do they look, sound, and act kind and friendly? Or do you get that creepy vibe from them? Seventh, SRA cults want you to believe that they create your reality. I specifically recommend a regular practice of written scripting, as described in my book and audiobook, Reality Creation and Manifestation. 8. SRA cults know that people decide to stay with things that are harmful because they feel familiar. So if you feel that moving to another city or country or changing jobs gets you out of the vicinity of members of the SRA cult, do so. 9. SRA cults are based on force. This means they are really powerless. To gain a better understanding of this, I recommend this lecture. Don't force it. Become attractive to it. You would ask, if they are powerless, then why do they have all the worldly power? Because they go to the extreme to harvest it from us. But it's not their own power. It is borrowed power on borrowed time. They are utterly doomed unless they change their ways and reconnect to Source. Frankly, the perpetrators are in more desperate need of healing than the victim. At least the recovering victim knows right from wrong. Always remember that the real enemy is fear, and they are nothing to be afraid of. 10. SRA cults want you to believe there's no way out. You can research support groups and therapists who specialize in SRA and MK. Exchange with other survivors. Sure, some of these are fake and run by the cult, but the broad majority are good people. Always remember that the cult are a tiny minority, and they have no real heart power. If you have heart power, it makes you more intuitive, wiser, more resourceful, more discerning, and less easily deceived. Creepy cult people are fortunately very easy to discern. All they have is violence, cash, and outmoded esoteric beliefs, but nothing more. Evil is overestimated. That's why we allow evil to victimize us. We overestimate their power and reach. The issues that afflict victims of SRA and MK are the same issues that trouble normal people. The difference is merely in degree.